Dramatic moment. Thousands of protesters storm Brazil's Congress over election result as cops fire tear gas. Thousands of furious protesters have stormed Brazil's Congress, Supreme Court and the presidential palace. Cops fired tear gas at supporters of former President Jair Bolsonaro as they smashed their way through barricades in a dramatic protest against President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva's inauguration last week. Thousands of demonstrators climbed on the roofs, broke windows and destroyed furniture as they stormed all three government buildings. Local media estimated about 3,000 people flooded Brasília's Three Powers Square, with security forces using riot cops on horseback, water cannons and tear gas bombs fired from helicopters to fight back. President Lula warned everyone involved will be found, and punished with the full force of the law, as he branded the protests barbarism. Calling the protesters fascist fanatics, he declared a federal security intervention in the city until January 31. U.S. President Joe Biden slammed the protests as outrageous, as Argentine President Alberto Fernandez condemned the coup attempt by Bolsonaro supporters. The area around the parliament building had been cordoned off by security forces, and cops fired tear gas to try and push demonstrators back. But protesters, who refused to accept Lula's election victory, smashed through the fences, marched up the ramps and gathered on a roof of the building. Images showed a tide of people storming the National Congress, with many waving Brazilian flags. Some reached the Senate chamber, where they jumped onto seats and used benches as slides. The building is where Brazil's Senate and Chamber of Deputies conducts its legislative business. Other footage showed protesters roaming around the presidential palace. After hours of chaos, security forces managed to reclaim the Congress building in the evening. According to reports, cops made 170 arrests. The Senate Security Service said it had arrested 30 people in the chamber. Bolsonaro, who was narrowly defeated by Lula in the second round of the presidential election on October 30, left Brazil at the end of the year and traveled to Florida. Bolsonaro supporters have been protesting against Lula's electoral by blocking roads, setting vehicles on fires and gathering outside military buildings. Many claim the election results were fraudulent or unreliable. Some protesters called for military intervention to restore the far-right Bolsonaro to power. Many have drawn comparisons with the storming of the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021 by supporters of Donald Trump, an ally of Bolsonaro. Justice Minister Flavio Dino said, "This absurd attempt to impose their will by force will not prevail. The government of the federal district has ensured there will be reinforcements. And the forces at our disposal are at work." Federal District Governor Ibanez Rocha said he had fired the capital city's head of public security after protesters shoved their way through police barricades. Murcio Santoro, political science professor at the State University of Rio de Janeiro, said Brazilian authorities had 2 years to learn the lessons from the Capitol invasion and to prepare themselves for something similar in Brazil. Local security forces in Brasília failed in a systematic way to prevent and to respond to extremist actions in the city. And the new federal authorities, such as the Ministers of Justice and of Defense, were not able to act in a decisive way.